This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. In its shocking Q2 financial statement, Tesla reported that its net profit plummeted 45% as new car deliveries fell 5% and production dropped 14%. Making matters worse, operating expenses shot up 39%. While automotive revenue fell 7%, revenue from energy storage and other services made up the difference, and free cash flow was up 34%. But those were the only positive developments. Otherwise, this was a disastrous quarter for the company and shows that slashing the prices of its cars really had a big impact. So, that might not have been the right move. We think this explains why Elon Musk has pivoted to a narrative all about robotaxis, robots, and generative AI. That robotaxi did see a recent delay because Elon requested some changes. It's now going to be shown off on October 10th instead of an August reveal. But he says that extra time will allow Tesla to, quote, show off a few other things. But he did not elaborate on what those things will be. Elon would also be, quote, surprised if it didn't have unsupervised self-driving by next year. However, he's been saying that every year since 2019, and in our opinion, its financial results show that Tesla's automotive operations desperately need Elon's attention. General Motors is once again delaying production of its electric pickups, the Chevy Silverado and GMC Sierra EVs. The models were originally supposed to start production at the company's plant in Orion, Michigan in early 2025. But last year, GM pushed that back until late 2025, and now the pickups are being delayed again till mid-2026. GM CEO Mary Barra also revealed that the company is delaying the introduction of Buick's first EV to North America. But she did not say when that model will now make its debut. This adds to last week when Barra announced that GM is backing off its goal of selling 1 million EVs in North America by the end of next year due to the slowdown in EV demand. Waymo is getting a massive investment that will allow it to continue to expand its autonomous ride-hailing operations. Parent company Alphabet says it's going to pour $5 billion into Waymo over multiple years, not only for its expansion into new areas in California and Texas, but also for development of self-driving tech and AI. And speaking of AVs, GM Cruise's former co-founder and CEO had some harsh words for the automaker after it announced it's dropping the Origin shuttle. Kyle Vogt said he's disappointed GM is killing the Origin, adding it would have been amazing for cities. But then he dropped this little nugget, quote, GM repeatedly finds themselves with a 5 to 10 year head start, but then fumbles the ball, shuts things down, and loses the lead. Anyone remember the EV1? It's like someone keeps letting them look into a crystal ball, and then they just go, nah, we're good, end quote. Well, ouch. To be honest, I don't think he's really wrong, but it also seems like he's been eating sour grapes. If we're to believe the reports, Vogt wasn't the best leader, and if he had been better, maybe he'd still be CEO and the Origin wouldn't have been killed off.
There's nothing wrong with heavy metal.
Hey, lighten up.
But with world-class composite material, Teijin Automotive Technologies makes vehicles lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly.
Well, it's not just automakers teaming up with Chinese companies on EV tech. LG Energy Solutions says it's looking to set up long-term supply deals or even joint ventures with up to 3 Chinese materials companies so it can get access to LFP or lithium iron phosphate battery cathodes. It says it would use those supplies to make batteries for Europe, which are not only cheaper for automakers and consumers, but LG claims it would allow it to bring its costs for making LFP batteries level with its Chinese rivals in just 3 years. Remember Tula, the company that invented skip fire, which shuts off cylinders in an IC engine when they're not needed? GM is pretty famous for using the tech in most of its pickups, SUVs, and even the Corvette. Well, Tula figured out that if you do pretty much the same thing with an electric motor, send strong pulses of electricity instead of a continuous flow, the motor is more efficient. And that can increase the range of an EV or allow an automaker to keep the same range but use a slightly smaller battery pack. The pulses are virtually imperceptible and only last for a few milliseconds, but they can increase the efficiency of an electric motor up to 3%, which means the battery could also be downsized by 3%. That may not sound like a lot, but let's say a battery costs $8,000. A 3% downsize equates to a $240 savings. And in an industry that fights over every penny of cost, $240 is a lot. Tula calls it DMD, or dynamic motor drive, and claims it can make a magnetless motor as efficient as a permanent magnet motor, which will get rid of the need for rare earth minerals. Best of all, Tula's solution is all software. No hardware or modifications are needed, and it can also be updated over the air. Tula says we could see this tech in production as early as next year. Fleet operators sure like the idea of getting EVs. Cox Automotive found that 87% of the fleet operators that it surveyed in the U.S. want to add EVs. And in the next 5 years, they expect 43% of their vehicles to be electric. That's for both fleets with and without EVs. But the ones that already have EVs expect to have 58% electrics in the next 5 years. Despite the fact that fleet owners say EVs need slightly more maintenance than ICE vehicles, 48% say they prefer electrics. On the other side, 27% say they prefer ICEs, and 24% said they didn't see any difference. Right now, only 14% of fleets have EVs, but Cox expects that to expand in the coming years. Mitsubishi says it's pivoting to North America to help drive the automaker's growth through the end of the decade. The company was trying to make inroads in Southeast Asia to boost its growth, but intense competition from low-cost Chinese brands and sluggish sales, which have dropped 11 consecutive months, is causing Mitsubishi to switch. Currently, North America accounts for 25% of its global revenue, but it's aiming to boost that to 30% by 2030. To help achieve that, Mitsu will introduce one new model in the market every year until the end of the decade. Its sales in the U.S. are still relatively small. Last year, it sold just over 87,000 vehicles. But in the first 6 months of this year, Mitsu has sold more than 51,000 vehicles, which is a 12% increase from last year. Xiaomi must have gotten a lot of positive feedback on that nearly 1,550 horsepower version of its all-electric SU7 sedan. The company's CEO says it will build a production version with the same battery pack, tri-motors, and chassis as the prototype, but without the carbon fiber body panels to help keep costs down. The SU7 Ultra is scheduled to go on sale in China in the first half of next year. And in other Chinese car news, EREVs, or extended range electrics, are the fastest growing segment in the country. So now Avatr, which is a joint venture between Changan, Huawei, and CATL, is coming out with EREV versions of both its 1.1 SUV and 1.2 sedan. They'll feature a 1.5-liter engine that charges an LFP battery pack that feeds a roughly 230 kilowatt or 300 horsepower electric motor. Battery size wasn't given, but they're expected to have around 201 kilometers or 125 miles of all-electric range. Honda is giving the Civic Si an update. The performance model gets a more aggressive front end and grille, along with revised taillights and a new wheel design. It also has a stiffer body, so the suspension was retuned to match the increased stiffness. It's still powered by the same 1.5-liter turbocharged engine that's mated to a 6-speed manual transmission. That setup cranks out 200 horsepower and 192 pound-feet of torque while delivering a combined 31 miles to the gallon. The new Civic Si arrives at dealer showrooms this August, with a starting price just over $31,000, including destination charges. And speaking of Honda, we've got the VP of Sales coming on tomorrow's Autoline After Hours to talk all about its jump into the EV war, how it outsold Stellantis in the US, and if strong sedan sales are just a temporary blip. You can catch that live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. But that's a wrap for this show. Thanks for tuning in.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering boost your game. MEDC, where Michigan businesses are powering the future of mobility. And by Teijin Automotive Technologies, the formula for better mobility.
Intrepid's NeoVi Pi, allowing automotive engineers to interface, capture, and monitor vehicle data using Raspberry Pi. As a matter of fact, it's the automotive industry's first robust platform for Raspberry Pi, featuring Intrepid CanFD technology and Raspberry Pi compute module. The NeoVi Pi is designed for automotive environments, allowing use with relative power ranges and applications. In addition, the NeoVi Pi enables you to use the Raspberry Pi for compute while avoiding additional development to adapt to network environments. That makes the NeoVi Pi powerful enough to solve your vehicle network problems, yet small enough to fit in your backpack. One of many Intrepid tools used for developing zonal architecture and software-defined vehicles.
Keeping your heart racing in and out of the gym. That's what really matters. Bridgestone Potenza Sport AS tires with a 50,000-mile limited warranty.
Michigan is leading the charge in mobility and innovation, and I can't think of a better state to be in.